Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's watch.
And then because Vinny's photos are being synced to my iCloud, I'm seeing all kinds of people, even faces I've never seen before, in and out of my house.
Okay, so she left and he's still in Ethiopia and he doesn't have anything else to do with his free time, and so he's hanging out with his friends. And there shouldn't be anything strange about that. And her attitude of he can't hang out with his friends, he can't invite friends over to his house, he can't have a drink with his friends. It's interesting. So it's probably, but I've seen this many, many times. People who are attachment insecure will triangulate, right? Because they don't feel as though other people will really hear them. What they are feeling is, I'm feeling distance and I'm feeling like you don't really love me. I don't know if I'm inaccurate or not, but I feel like you don't really care. And I feel like you don't want to put in the effort into this relationship. It just feels distancing, and I feel hurt, and I feel alone, and I feel scared. That is true. But instead of speaking from that place, one, you have to be aware of it, which takes a lot to learn. And two, you have to trust the other person because that's a lot of vulnerability. And you have to trust that the other person will respond in a way that will, take care of you. That's very hard. It's much easier to triangulate, to say, you have bad friends, or you're staying out. I'm going to triangulate with your work, or I'm going to triangulate with your activities, instead of like directly talking. So I'm guessing it's going to be more of that.
Hi.
Hey, how are you? Are you okay? You look tired.
Clearly you don't care how I am.
Of course I care. Why you thinking?
So right off the bat, she is starting with contempt and a kind of attitude of accusation, which is probably not accurate. I mean, do we believe that Biniyam doesn't care about his wife and his child? I think that he does care. So, why would she say that? It's a passive aggression, or at least it's an indirect way of communicating. It's like, well, so I'm calling you because I've been feeling like you don't really care. Instead of saying that, it's like, you don't care about me, just right off the bat. And I'll talk sometimes about how to open up a conversation. You have to often, particularly for attachment insecure individuals, we will think about, I have to have that conversation in the future. You want to plan for how you open it up. You don't want to open it up with something like that, because it immediately puts someone on the defensive. It's hurtful, and it doesn't build goodwill. So I don't have high hopes for this conversation.
You haven't called. You haven't asked about Avi. You don't ask me how I am. You turn the phone off.
Because every time you ask me about some situation, you fight, why you go there, why you do that.
I didn't fight with you.
Every time we're fighting.
Right. So now he's not helping, because there's a more convincing way of speaking to her. But she's entering into this mode where she is, and she'll do this sometimes, but I'm worried about this because she seems to be, sometimes she would go into this mode when she was very triggered. And she would come from a very self-assured place where she feels like, I'm smarter than you. I know things. You're the bad one. I'm the good one. I know everything. You know nothing. And it's a concerning boat to get into. But when she was triggered, it was like, well, it was temporary, and she would recover. Often she could recover and pull out of it. I'm really worried about this one because she seems to be in this state for a long period of time. Now, some will say, well, she's pretty stressed about her kid. Okay, that doesn't excuse it, though. I mean, you can certainly be stressed out and have some mood issues, but her attitude towards him is a result of a defense. It's not because she woke up, she wants to be a jerk face. She's hurting, and she feels a lot of distance, and she doesn't apparently have any other way of communicating. And she apparently doesn't have any self-awareness about, like, okay, what's happening for me right now? Am I making some assumptions right now? What's going to work? Now, if we talk to her and I say, do you want to salvage this relationship? She's like, no, not really. then, all bets are off kind of in a way, and you don't really need to speak in a certain way because it's going to end. But I suspect she would say, well, yeah, I mean, if things can work out, I'd like things to work out. Then I would say, we have to work on your attitude. We have to work on how you see things. We have to work on your self-awareness, owning of your feelings. How do you communicate about that? How do you build some goodwill between the two of you? So he's saying, so she's saying, you don't answer the phone, so it's a continuation of previous, from previous weeks that we've seen. And he's saying, well, it's because every time you call me, you're yelling at me, you're fighting. That's why I don't answer the phone. So this is a classic preoccupied avoidant dynamic, and he's not helping. So he could answer the phone and say, okay, let's talk about it. Yeah. And then she would lay into him, and then he would say, okay, when you say that to me, it hurts my feelings. It makes me feel like you think I'm a complete idiot when I feel like I've always shown you that I love you. I've always shown you that do you think I don't love my own son? And this, frequent negativity from you, it makes it whenever, some of you out there can relate to this from either side of the coin here. If you come from this kind of dynamic or did in the past, you will know that when you get a phone call or a text from a certain person, it could even be your spouse, and you look at it, you're like, oh no, and your body tenses up. Like, think about that. Like, if you get a text from your spouse or your friend or your boss or something, and you notice that it's their name and your body tenses up, something's going wrong. Now, you might not be able to fix it, but if it's a spousal relationship, it should be something you should pay attention to. Because your body is, because I've had this, I had a boss once that this was like, I'd see their name on the caller ID, and I'd go like, oh God, what's going to happen? And it was all the time. And it was due to years and years of essentially abuse that was happening. And so on the other side of the coin, you don't want to create that in someone else, right? You don't want to be that person who causes someone else to see your name as you're calling, and their body actually tenses up because of the trauma that you've put them through in the past. And I'm guessing that's what's happening for him. That doesn't justify him avoiding. There's a much healthier way of him leaning in and saying, let's talk about it. Let's help you to feel more secure so that you don't have to resort to fighting with me, that kind of thing. So, they're both triggering each other, it looks like to me.
Because of your behavior, because of what you did and what you've done to our family home. You took the home that I had and you turned it into a party house. You had Frazier living there. You had girls over my house. You had all kinds of people over.
So he can't have his friends over to his house. If my wife were out of town and I had friends over to my house, that's not okay. I can't have friends over to my house when my wife is out of town. Like, again, it's not that. She's triangulating that because she feels as though she isn't loved, and she feels as though she's not being loved because of her attachment insecurity that she developed growing up, in all likelihood. I don't know. That's complete speculation, of course.
I don't know who was sleeping in my bed, who was sleeping in me and Avi's bed. What you were doing, it's so shameful. A family home is sacred. You don't violate your family home by bringing strangers there.
How is it violating the family home when you have parties? I had a party the other night for Halloween, and some of the people some of the people my wife didn't know, but I knew them, or they were friends of friends. You know what I mean? And so it's not a violation. Now, she did say that there were, according to her evidence, people sleeping in her bed that she didn't know. Yeah, it's kind of gross. Not everyone's going to feel that way. And maybe Ethiopia has a different culture around that. It's just like, you're mi casa, you casa, go ahead and sleep in my bed. I don't care. I don't know. But I highly suspect that her attachment insecurity is being triggered. She's putting on a persona that she uses to protect herself, and it is judgmental and superior and accusatory and critical and quite shaming. You have, I think she even you have shamed our house, that kind of thing. And now for some of you might be able to relate to her on some level. Like, yeah, if I went out of town I wouldn't want my spouse to have parties in the house. That's just kind of gross. Like I don't like randos, rummaging around in our stuff in our house. I don't want that. That's okay. It sounds like they could have a conversation about that for sure. But I don't think that's what they're really talking about. I think, this has been a buildup of her feeling like she isn't safe in the relationship. She doesn't feel as though he is dedicated to her.
Even I saw a picture of the bedroom. He put away Avi's bed. He packed up the pack and play and put it away, and it's gone. Maybe he didn't want to think about Avi.
Maybe. I don't think so. Do you really think that Biniyam doesn't want to think about his son and doesn't like his son, doesn't love his own son? Is that what you're claiming? He probably put the bed away because he wanted to protect it or something, or it was just in the way because he was having a party. I mean, you can see how she's shoving every little detail it's into this narrative. And, actually this is kind of scary as well because she's in the States and she has threatened to take the child away from him before. And people in her life are telling her, I'm not showing the clips, like trying to convince her to stay in the States. So, because, you got to feel for Biniyam if that happens. I mean, it just seems like they're really on the edge of something here that it could go really bad for everybody.
I tell you, just wait on music, just like that. Because your mind is thinking just you don't trust me. That's the problem. That's it.
Oh, so why should I trust you, Biniyam? You don't answer the phone when I call you.
He just told you why you don't answer the phone. It's because you're always yelling at him or frequently yelling at him about nothing. Now, that again, it doesn't justify him not answering the phone. He should answer the phone and be like, hey, I'm busy right now, or hey, I don't want to talk to you right now. I'll talk with avoidance and I'll say, don't avoid. Lean in. But you can establish a boundary, but you have to lean in first to establish the boundary. You can say, like blowing up text during at work and the Biniyams of the world. It's like, hey, I got your text. I'm sorry, I don't have time. And I love you. The fact that I'm not responding does not mean I don't love you. Lean in. Don't just avoid like a child. The way children will just kind of try and hide. Stand up and say, hey, I get it. You want to talk to me right now, but I don't have time. Or I don't want to talk to you because of the way you talked to me last time. I'm not, hey, I didn't respond to your phone call because I don't feel like talking to you right now because I don't want to be yelled at the way you yelled at me earlier. Be upfront about it. It's not necessarily going to solve it, but at the very least, you're not being, passive aggressive with your silent treatment, which will obviously trigger more yelling from the other person.
I'm doing music, like
For 14 hours? For 14 hours you're doing music?
No.
Anyways, I'm calling. I wanted to tell you something.
Okay, just
No, just I thought about it a lot, and I've decided I'm not coming back to Ethiopia.
Wow. Yikes. Biniyam's going to be destroyed again. She just has the right to just do, like, imagine y'all out there. Your partner goes on a trip with your kids and then just calls you, says, yeah, I'm staying, and you're never going to see your kids again. What? Now, maybe she'll start up and say, hopefully her next sentence is, and I want you to come to the States because I don't want to live in Ethiopia, but I'm dedicated to you and I want us to be a family. Maybe that'll be the next thing she'll say.
what?
I'm not coming back to Ethiopia.
Why you did it to me like that? Oh, before when you leave, you promised me you want to come back.
After everything you have done, I will never go back to Ethiopia.
Who are you? You just
Because he had a party? Because he didn't answer the phone and he tells you the reason why I didn't answer the phone is because you yell at me often? Or I was busy doing something? I'm not constantly at your beck and call. For that, I am going to kidnap your child and you'll never see your child again. I mean, I want the best for all three of them, for Biniyam, for Ariela, for the child. I want them to be together. If they're going to be divorced, fine, but the child needs both the parents, and both the parents need the child. But the fact that Ariela, and I just have to say, as an American, just feels like she has this right, like her rights to the child are greater than his rights to the child, is hope. Okay, so we're in the middle of the season. Hopefully, it'll get turned around. That's I'm gonna hope on that. Like, this will get turned around and everything will be okay.
Position I don't like is not for my culture is disrespectful. Like, just
Stop using your culture as an excuse. Is it normal in your culture to sleep with other women when you're engaged? Is that normal?
Are you telling me just I'm chilling and you're like just what are you thinking?
Biniyam, I'm here in America. I don't know what you're doing.
Right, you don't know, and he doesn't know what you're doing, but you're assuming and you're accusing him of cheating, even though I don't know if a lot of us think that he is cheating. I mean, he could be. She could be cheating. So this conversation probably is going to continue to nosedive, and it's almost the end of the episode, so maybe we'll... I guess I just have to take a deep breath and wait till next week to hope for a turnaround on this. So I'm guessing this conversation is going to end badly because Ariela doesn't seem to be interested at all in making this constructive.
So many people, you have to ask me. Like, you have to, whatever if you want, just ask me.
Wish is the one who told me that you had other women in my house and that you've been around with other girls. Wish is the one who told me that, and so did your friends. So you think you're being sneaky? You think you're being sneaky? Everyone sees you. Everyone sees your behavior. Everyone knows.
Okay, that adds some context, if that's true. So she's saying that his sister told Ariela that there's been women in the house. Is that part of the parties? You know, like if my wife was out of town and I threw a party, there'd be potentially women, I suppose, friends and or spouses of friends. Is that what is happening? Or is the sister saying that he's cheating and he's doing things? Somehow I can't see him doing that, but you know, we can't know what he would do. So if that's true, then you know, I would understand where she's coming from for sure in her anger. I still don't think it justifies taking his child away from him, though.
You know, for the health and safety of your family, you should consider getting tested.
What?
Vinny's sister Wish texted me and told me there were girls sleeping over the house. And then I had his messenger on my phone, and he got a message from a girl saying, "Do you remember me from the other night at the club?" Obviously, he's hiding something.
Okay, I mean, before Ariela would have these accusations and there wasn't any data. Now there are data. So I'd have to see it to know how to feel about it, because I could see her misinterpreting something. But there's multiple lines of evidence, including his sister, who has seen things and told Ariela about things. So, yeah, I mean, if that's true, then that would absolutely justify her being upset, and it's not a distortion. She, you know, has evidence to believe that he's cheating, and with multiple people. And yeah, I can understand why she would be upset. If she wants to preserve the relationship, you know, there's a different way to communicate about that, but you know, that certainly puts things into context.
I'm going to give you a chance. If you want to try and be a family, me and Avi and you can move to Mombasa and we can start over again. But if you don't want to come to Kenya, we can figure out a custody arrangement and we can co-parent together. Those are the options.
Okay. I didn't have to wait till next week to have. She's saying, look, we could. Now, I don't understand going to Kenya. What is that, to get away from his friends or something? That's interesting. And then she's saying that if we do get a divorce, we will co-parent. Does that mean she lives in Ethiopia? Does that mean that she helps him to get a visa to come to the States? Is that even possible if they get a divorce? I don't know. But it sounds like she's thinking about, you know, making sure that, you know, he has access to his son.
before your
Biniyam,
decision.
I am trying because part of me still loves you. Even though you hurt me, I am trying to help you. I don't want you to lose Avi because Avi is an amazing boy, but you are surrounded by evil. And you are not the same man that I knew.
So I didn't show all the clips, but she has a similar Angela attitude, that the goofballs or whatever, that it seems like a triangulation. Now, according to her, meaning a distortion, she claims that they're evil. You live with evil men that are evil and are there to ruin us. It's possible. I mean, certainly that can exist. Even in particular cultures. I have no idea about Ethiopia, but there are cultures where machismo will be very much of a mandate, and when men get together, there's a way of talking about wives that's just very denigrating and dehumanizing and upholding of this idea of like you could never be subservient or give in to anything she says, and so we have to prove ourselves that we're independent real men by cheating on or getting drunk or even hurting our wives. So I don't know if he comes from a culture like that, and that would be at least categorized as quote unquote evil, I suppose. But the evidence that she gave about these friends as a negative influence, I wasn't convinced. We even saw last week him talking with his friends, and they were having a conversation, and it wasn't like a super constructive conversation with his friends, but it didn't seem evil. I mean, even like with Angela in the goofballs, like those guys don't seem to be bad people. I mean, they're defending Michael and saying Angela treats you badly, which all of us can agree. Anyway, but she knows things more than we do, and so Ariela. So maybe the friends are a bad influence, and so that's why she's saying let's go to Kenya so it can get away from those people. It's interesting. I guess there's just a lot of question marks there. At the very least, if I were there and they were asking me for help, I would say, look, we got to start from the basics of attachment discussion, attachment awareness. Let's take care of each other first, and for him to open up, to be more vulnerable, so that we can just maybe get an understanding of where he's coming from. Because I think there's, for her and maybe for us too, there's this big question mark because he's not very spontaneously emotional. He's not very open about what's really happening for him. And, we've seen this with other people like Mike and Natalie, this kind of thing. And when you have these big question marks, and you're hurt and you feel distance, you'll fill it in with some very negative things. But those negative things might actually exist. That's the thing with the question mark. We just don't know.
So I've decided to go to the neighboring country of Kenya. We've been there before, and for me, it's neutral territory. You can come and live with me in Mombasa with Avi, and we can start it over again as a family. That is your decision. I know it's not going to be easy, but I'm willing to work with you.
I mean, it would be interesting to see. If it's unnecessary, then it seems like quite a big move to make. If he's just like, so let's imagine a world where he isn't cheating, he hasn't done anything wrong, he's just had friends over to his house, big deal, and he has a couple beers with his friends, big deal. And some of his, friends have girlfriends or wives that come over, so let's imagine, because that, seems possible. And then all of a sudden your wife is like, I'm going to rip you away from your family and your friends and your work and, everything. And I'm going to move you to, just because I have these weird paranoid thoughts. So if that's happening, then yeah, he would say things like, you're being bossy. What's wrong with you? Why are you doing this? Like, this is unreasonable. Or is he actually being influenced in a negative way by these other people? And it is a viable solution to their marriage to move somewhere else. I don't know. There's a lot of question marks there for me.
Shut the up, and listen. You have spent the last 2 months destroying your family. You don't get a say anymore. You have sacrificed nothing. You have God knows who you and God knows what you've been doing, and I don't even care, and I don't even want to know. This is a chance for you to redeem yourself. This is your last chance.
So on one hand, if he has been doing those things, we would understand where Ariela is coming from. And I still wouldn't advise this style of communication, but we would understand. If not, if he has done nothing wrong, imagine this. Imagine like you're sad and you're scared and you're lonely and your wife and kid, go halfway across the world, and you're like, oh, please God, please bring him back, because I don't want to have another situation where I don't have, access to my child. I'm worried. Hey, friends, let's hang out. Let's, he has a lot of friends. He hangs out with people. And then you get this call. Imagine that. It's just like, what is happening? So I don't know. A lot hinges on, has he been cheating? Has he been, because I guess that's the main thing, right? Because if he just had friends over and they had a party, even if it was frequent, I just don't see that as justifying this. But if he has cheated, then everything hinges on that. Did he cheat or did he not cheat? She has information from his sister, from other kinds of things, or because she's seen she's exhibited in the past that she will, when there's a question mark, she will insert things. I don't know. It's hard to know. Maybe we'll find out.
So wake up. I'm done with him.
All right. Well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.